Well, here's an update on the T-Bird. We've stripped off all the Bondo that was on these 2/4 panels. A few little dents and dings back here in the back, which isn't that big a deal. Come forward, like I said before, I showed you the braze, and I got to figure out how to get this out of here and get it down so that the transition to the door will be much better. Also down here, it's going to take some work to get that straightened up. But the rest of the car, the doors, we've already started sanding those down. Fenders look good. We'll come around the other side quick. Of course, all this will be detailed up under the hood, and everything else is looking pretty clean, pretty good gaps. But again, this is just horrible here. So we knew we'd find it once we got the Bondo loose, but we'll just have to play with it. Try to make it look better. And then of course I got to cut out this big gnarly patch that's here. I don't understand what they were doing, but this is set really deep in the car, so you can see right there a little bit how deep that is, maybe. But a little update for you. I started doing some cutting on the 64 T-Bird. You know, we had that problem with the brazed on panels, and I needed to know what I was dealing with, so I just went ahead and made a few cuts and trying to do some prep work and be prepared for what I have to do in the next step. As you can see, this is what we were dealing with. All this old braze, you know, brass on here, and it just created a big lump, which doesn't work well. So I ended up cutting off strips of metal, and what I did is I came below where the seam was with the brass, and I just cut a line, and I only cut through the first layer with this piece. Once I cut that loose, then I went above where the brass ended, and I made a line, and I basically just pried off these strips. It was like that. Kind of hard to show you, but I pried it up and broke them loose. So now I have a separation of the two panels. You can see it there. The next step is I ground off the remaining brass that was on the original panel up here, and I now have the replacement panel, which was put on years ago, and I don't plan on taking this off. What I'll do is I'll cut a line all the way through. I'll follow this cut on this top panel, and I'll cut through this panel and get rid of that inner piece, push the two together, and butt weld it, and that'll take care of this and make it almost a perfectly smooth transition. And then we'll go on from there. Here you can see where there's some rust in between here, and that's from the panel overlap and moisture getting in there over the years. So that's the next big step, is taking care of the top of this quarter panel, and it should be relatively easy compared to the rest of it, but just have to finish cutting all this out and making it fit proper and welding it back together. Stay tuned. I decided to go ahead and remove the rest of that brass and that braze, so I cut it off like I said on that edge, and then I cut it above like I said on those other pieces. So there's a pile of strips left over. Once I got that out of the way, I took a grinder and smoothed off the rest of the brass that was on there, and then I came back and I cut through, like I said, all the way through both panels so that I could push this down and tack it together. And I probably said it before, but I'll say it again. Anytime you tack two panels together like this, you know, make sure they're flat, but also take a start point and go about maybe 2 inches or 1.5 inches, something like that, and get your tacks going, and make sure each piece is flat as it goes together. You don't want to get it hot, you don't want to go crazy and try to run a bead, because you'll just warp and mess up your finish. So at this point I've just started tacking it together just to hold it in place while I finish up some of the other stuff, and I'll come back and tack in between each one of these and just take my time. I'll tack, and I may do this area, I may wander off and do something up here, come back here, go back to the front. I may do that and just do a bunch of tacks and then leave for 5 or 10 minutes and let the metal cool down so that it doesn't cause me any problems. So stay tuned, it's making progress. Here's the end result of all the welding and tacking and blending, and as you can see, it's a nice transition all the way across now, and it'll be a lot easier to cover with a little bit of filler and finish it up and make it look good again. Just got to take your time doing these things and you can make it happen. I also had cut it back here on this edge, pushed it down, and then welded that together so that the transition is a lot more subtle. But I'm starting to work on the other side. It needs a little more help than this side did because they even butchered it up worse on that side, but making good progress.